What exactly do you do?
A butler, sir.
Which means what?
The butler is head of the kitchen and dining room. I keep everything tidy, that's all.
I see.
Well, what is all this about, butler? This dinner party?
Ours not to reason why, ours but to do and die.
Die?
Merely quoting Sir from Alfred Lord Tennyson.
I prefer Kipling myself. The female of the species is more deadly than the male.
The ladies
Do you
all
like
stare at him
Kipling?
coldly.
Do you like Kipling,
I do.
Miss Scarlett?
Sure, I'll eat anything.
Shark's fin soup, madame?
Miss Peacock gets them, and Miss Scarlett, then Miss White, and Professor Plum, and Colonel Mustard. Colonel Mustard indicates the elegance of Chippendale upright armchair and the head of the table.
So is this for our host?
No, sir, for the 7th guest, Mr. Body.
I thought Mr. Body was our host.
So did I.
So who is our host, Wadsworth?
Well, I'm gonna start while it's still hot.
Shouldn't we wait for the other guest?
I will keep something warm for him.
What did you have in mind, dear?
Professor Plum sees that everyone has been served. He starts eating, so do the others. The slurping sounds of soup is being eaten as delicately as possible, as everyone is aware that they're all watching and listening to each other. Big close-ups and 2 shots of the 6th guest in turn. Yvette goes out to the kitchen, followed by Wadsworth. After eating in silence for a while, Miss Peacock speaks nervously.
Well, somebody's got to break the ice, so it might as well be me. I mean, I'm used to being a hostess. It's part of my husband's work, and it's always difficult when a group of new friends meet together for the first time to get acquainted. So I'm perfectly prepared to start the ball rolling. I mean, I have absolutely no idea what we're doing here or what I'm doing here, what this place is or about, but I'm determined to enjoy myself and very intrigued and oh my, the soup is delicious, isn't it?
You say you are used to being a hostess as part of your husband's work?
Yes, it's an integral part of your life when you're the wife of a... But then I forgot, we are not really supposed to say who we really are we? Though, heavens to Betsy, I don't know why.
Don't you?
I know who you are.
Aren't you going to tell us?
How do you know who I am?
Well, I work in Washington too.
Washington. So you're a politician's wife.
Yes, I am.
Come on then, who's your husband?
The door opens suddenly. They all jump a little. Wadsworth comes in. He indicates to Yvette to come and collect the soup bowls. She does so in a tense silence and departs with Wadsworth, who closes the door behind them. Meanwhile, the conversation has continued.
And what does your husband do?
Nothing.
Nothing at all?
Well, he just lies around on his back all day.
Sounds like hard work to me.
They all look at Miss Scarlett. Suddenly, a panel shoots up behind them. They all jump. Miss Green spills food or wine all over Miss Scarlett.
I'm sorry, I'm a little accident prone.
We see it is a hatch up into the kitchen. Yvette is placing the main course in the hatch.
Excusez-moi.
Indistinctively, we see cook dishing up foods. Wadsworth comes into the dining room and starts placing the main course in front of each guest. It's Chinese food, a couple of bland-looking main dishes with rice and noodles, so forth. Miss Peacock tastes it.
Delicious. This is one of my favorite recipes.
Wadsworth is in front of.
Oh, wait. Sorry, go ahead.
I know.
Wadsworth. I'm just trying to get the action lines that matter in here, and it's hard. Okay, keep going.
So, what do you do in Washington, D.C., Mr. Green? Come on, what do you do? How are we to get acquainted if we don't actually say anything about ourselves?
Perhaps he doesn't want to get acquainted with you.
Well, I don't know, I'm sure. If I wasn't trying to keep the conversation going, we'd all be sitting here in embarrassed silence.
Are you frightened of silence, Mrs. Peacock?
No? Why?
It just seems to me that you are. You seem to suffer from what we call pressure of speech.
We? Who's we? Are you a shrink?
I do know a little bit about psychological medicine, yes.
You're a doctor.
I am, but I don't practice.
But practice makes perfect. I think most men need a little practice, don't you, Mrs. Peacock?
So what do you do, Professor?
I work for UNO, the United Nations organization.
Another politician? Jesus.
No, I work for a branch of UNO, WHO, the World Health Organization. Very important right now.
And what is your area of special concern?
Family planning.
So if we ever want to find out about you, know what, we could go to the UNO who?
So what about you, Colonel Mustard? Are you a real colonel?
I am, sir.
You're not going to mention the coincidence that you also live in Washington, D.C.?
How did you know that? Have we met before, ma'am?
I've certainly seen you before, though you may not have noticed me, I dare say.
Miss Scarlett, does that mean you live there too?
Sure do.
Does anyone here not live in Washington, D.C.?
I don't.
Yes, but you work for UNO, a government job, and the rest of us all live in a government town. Anyone here not earn their living from the government one way or the other?
Wadsworth, where is our host, and why have we been brought here?
Wadsworth smiles enigmatically, and the doorbell rings. Interior of the hall, Wadsworth walks down the hall to the front door, tense music. He opens up the door. Standing there is an unprepossessing man. One might almost describe him as ugly if they were feeling charitable. Certainly his features are ordinary enough, but there is about him an air of oh my god, I can't do certain words. Bitterness, perhaps even evil. He also bites his nails and picks his teeth, nose, and other orifices. He carries a small locked suitcase. As the door opens, there is a tremendous flash of lightning and crash of thunder. Wadsworth seems pleased to see him in an odd sort of way.
Ah, Mr. Body, you are eagerly awaited.
I find that hard to believe. This is not your place, I take it?
No, sir, it's on loan.
What are you supposed to be?
I'm supposed to be polite, though when talking to you, I find that the task is almost beyond me.
They're talking loudly enough to be heard in the dining room. Interior of the dining room, all 6 guests are listening to the conversation in the hall. So is Yvette. Interior kitchen, the cook is listening too. Interior of the hall, Wadsworth is hanging up Mr. Body's hat, coat, and umbrella.
Just one thing, Wadsworth. Remember I know who you really are, and don't you forget it.
Shall I take your bag?
No, I'll leave it here, till I need it.
As you wish. It contains evidence, I presume.
Surprises, my friend. That's what it contains. Surprises. May
Puts
I?
it under the coat. Sorry, go ahead. He puts it under the coat rack. As he does so, Wadsworth turns his back to the front door and locks it with a deadlock key.
May I see that key?
Over my dead body, sir. Have you just arrived from Washington, sir?
Yes, it's a long haul.
Indeed, it is a long haul, but then it is a very large house.
You think you're quite a fellow, don't you?
Interior dining room. All the guests are eating in silence. Wadsworth enters, followed by Mr. Body. Everyone turns to look at Mr. Body as he enters. He stops dead, slightly frightened when he sees them all. They look at him with curiosity. It should be clear to us that he recognizes them, but none of them recognize him.
Now.
Mr. Green?
I think my script is fucked up.
It's all of them. Just jump.
Okay.
It's missing page 23.
We're missing a page, yeah.
It's fine. Page 23.
Basically, Wadsworth says, everyone is here because you got a letter. Go ahead.
Right. That's all that happened.
I got a similar letter.
So did we, didn't we?
I also received a letter.
Meanwhile, Yvette is placing a main course in front of Mr. Body. He waves it away.
No thanks, Yvette. I'm not hungry.
How did you know her name?
We know each other, don't we, dear?
She nods.
Sorry. Forgive my curiosity, Mr. Body, but did your letter say the same thing?
No.
I see. Can I interest any of you in fruit or desserts?
No one's interested. They shake their heads.
In that case, may I suggest that we adjourn to the study for coffee and brandy, at which point I believe our unknown host will reveal his intentions.
They all rise. The men stand aside for the ladies.
Ladies first.
Wadsworth signals to Yvette to start clearing the table. Interior of the hall, Colonel Mustard and Miss Scarlett are conversing as they cross the hall.
If he's in the study, why didn't he join us for dinner?
Well, I'm certainly looking forward to meeting him.
Interior of the study. We see the study. It's empty. The guests, led by Wadsworth, cross the hall from the dining room and enter the study. They stop and look around.
There's no one here.
Mind if I smoke?
Please help yourselves to coffee and brandy and be seated.
And he crosses to the desk, passing past a blazing log fire. On the desk, there are plain brown envelopes simply addressed to Wadsworth. Please open after dinner. He picks it up. They settle on the chairs and sofas around the room. It's a comfortable room, oak-paneled, chintz-covered, upholstered chairs and sofa forming contrast with the heavy leather furnishings in the library and the elegance of the dining room. Unlike the other rooms, which have wooden parquet flooring, the study has Persian rugs over from wall to wall and wall-to-wall carpet. Sitting in silence as they all watch him, Wadsworth picks up a fancy letter opener and opens a brown manila envelope. He withdraws a short letter. He glances at it and then looks around, replacing the envelope on the desk.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am instructed to explain to you what you all have in common with each other. Unless you would care to do the honors, Mr. Body?
Why me? Do they know who I am?
I don't think so. You've never identified yourself to them, I believe.
Why? Who are you?
We have all been dragged here for nothing. It's a hoax. I suggest we all leave.
I'm sorry, sir, but you cannot leave this house.
No.
He goes out of the house, enters the hall. Mr. Body is hurrying towards the front door. Wadsworth appears.
You can't leave!
Who's going to stop me?
There's no way out.
Mr. Body tries to open the front door. It's locked. As he does so, all the guests crush into the doorway to watch.
This is an outrage. How dare you hold us prisoner?
Here,
Let us out.
Oh,
He's right.
I'm getting frightened.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, please return to the study and all will be explained. You too, Mr. Body.
They turn reluctantly. Mr. Body follows. From a point of view over Mr. Body's shoulder, we can see that he has seen the conservatory. He hurries towards it.
Other way.
Mr. Body takes no notice, so Wadsworth hurries out into the hall and hastens down the hall in pursuit of Mr. Body. Interior the conservatory night. Huge green creeping vegetation covers the room. There are many potential lurking places in here. Rain is beating down loudly on the glass roof. Mr. Body is running into the room, which, like all conservatories, is mostly made of glass. He jumps onto a ledge at the far end and picks up a flower pot, preparatory breaking the glass. Wadsworth almost runs into the conservatory.
You can't get out that way.
Why not? It's just glass.
Look.
A vicious, snarling Doberman pincher leaps up the side of the conservatory. Mr. Body turns back from the window. Interior of the study, everyone's sitting. Yvette, who is waiting there, sees that they have refills of coffee and starts to hand brandies around. Brandies are silently accepted by Colonel Mustard, Professor Plum, and Miss Scarlett. Wadsworth stands in front of the crackling log fire and consults the contents of the envelope, which he opens.
Ladies and gentlemen, you all have one thing in common. You are all being blackmailed. For some considerable time, all of you have been paying what you can afford, and in some cases more than you can afford, to someone who threatens to expose you. And none of you know who's blackmailing you, do you?
I've never heard anything so ridiculous. Nobody could blackmail me. My life is an open book. I've never done anything wrong.
Anybody else wish to deny it? Very well. As everyone here is in the same boat, there is no harm in my revealing some details, and my instructions are to do so.
He looks through some typewritten papers that were in the brown envelope. He nods for Yvette to leave the room. They watch her go. The door closes behind her.
Don't you think that you might spare us this humiliation?
I'm sorry. Professor Plum, you were once a professor of psychiatry specializing in helping paranoid and homicidal lunatics suffering from delusions of grandeur.
Yes, but now I work at the United Nations.
So your work has not changed. But you don't practice medicine at the UN. His license to practice has been lifted, correct?
Why? What did he do?
You know what doctors aren't allowed to do with their lady patients?
Yes.
Well, he did.
How disgusting.
Are you making moral judgments, Mrs. Peacock? How then do you justify taking bribes in return for delivering your husband, Senator Peacock's vote to certain lobbyists?
My husband is a paid consultant. There's nothing wrong with that.
Not if it's publicly declared, but if the payment is delivered by slipping used greenbacks and plain envelopes under the door of the men's room, how would you describe that transaction?
I would say it stinks.
How would you know? You've never been in that men's room.
Oh, it's true.
No, it's a vicious lie.
I'm sure we're all glad to hear that, but you've been paying blackmail for over a year now to keep this story out of the papers.
I'm willing to believe you. I'm also being blackmailed for something I didn't do.
Me too.
And me.
But not me.
You're not being blackmailed?
Oh, I'm being blackmailed, all right, but I did what I'm being blackmailed for. What did I do, you ask? Well, to be perfectly frank, I run a specialized hotel. A telephone service which provides gentlemen with the company of a young lady for a short while.
Oh yeah? What's the phone number?
Men. Men.
So how did you know that Colonel Mustard works in Washington? Is he one of your clients?
Certainly not.
I was asking Miss Scarlett.
Tell them it's not true.
It's not true.
That true?
No, that's not true.
Aha, so it is true.
A double negative.
A double negative? You mean you have photographs?
Mm-hmm.
That sounds like a confession to me. In fact, the double negative has led to proof positive. I'm afraid you gave yourself away, sir.
Are you trying to make me look stupid in front of the other guests?
You don't need any help from me, sir.
But seriously, I don't see what's so terrible about Colonel Mustard visiting a house of ill fame. Most soldiers do.
But he holds a sensitive security post in the Pentagon. And Colonel, you drive a very expensive car for someone who lives on a colonel's pay.
I don't. I came into money during the war when I lost my parents.
You lost them? Did you report the loss to the police?
No, dying is perfectly legal.
Sometimes, yes. Mrs. White, you have been paying our friend the blackmailer ever since your husband died, shall we say, under mysterious circumstances?
What's so funny?
I see. That's why he's lying on his back in a coffin.
I didn't kill him.
Then why are you paying the blackmailer?
I don't want a scandal. We'd had a fight. He was crazy. He hated me. He had threatened to kill me in public.
Why would he want to kill you in public?
I think that she meant that he had threatened in public to kill her.
Ah, and what was his final word on the matter?
Being killed is pretty final, wouldn't you say?
And yet he was the one who died, not you, Mrs. White, not you.
What did he do for a living?
He was a scientist, nuclear physics.
What was he like?
He was always a stupidly optimistic man. I'm afraid it came as a great shock to him when he died. He was found dead at home. His head had been cut off. So had his, I'd been out all...
But she gestures vaguely to her groin.
I'd been out all evening at the movies.
What was showing?
From Here to Eternity.
How very appropriate.
Do you miss him?
It's a matter of life after death. He's dead. Now I have a life.
But he was your second husband. Your first also disappeared.
That was his job. He was an illusionist.
But he never reappeared.
He wasn't a very good illusionist.
I have something to say. I'm not going to wait for Wadsworth here to unmask me. I work for the State Department, and I'm a homosexual. I feel no personal shame or guilt about this, but I have to keep it quiet or I would lose my job on security grounds.
Well, that just leaves Mr. Body.
And what's your little secret?
His secret? Oh, I thought you'd all realized. He's the one who's blackmailing you all.
You bastard!
Colonel, please don't do anything rough.
Put him up!
He puts his fist up for an old-fashioned fight. Mr. Body responds by stamping abruptly on Colonel Mustard's foot, and Colonel Mustard bends forward in pain to clutch his foot. Mr. Body neatly pokes him in the eyes with 2 fingers simultaneously, like a Three Stooges routine. As Colonel Mustard yells and collapses, Mr. Body throws himself and continues to beat him up. Mr. Green and Professor Plum rush to Colonel Mustard's rescue, hauling Mr. Body off as the struggling colonel. Mr. Body is struggling and fighting them off too. He's very strong. Miss White, Miss Scarlett, and Miss Peacock are watching. As Mr. Body is hauled to his feet, Miss White steps calmly forward and knees him in the balls. And as Mr. Body collapses in a heap, the other women clap and cheer and run and start kicking him. Wadsworth shouts above the brawl.
Wait, the police are coming.
The police! Why would you call the police? Why would you do that?
Listen, blackmail depends on secrecy. You have all admitted how he's been able to blackmail you. All you have to do is tell the police and he will be convicted and your trouble will be over.
You see, Wadsworth, it's not so easy. They'll never tell the police.
Then I shall. I have evidence in my possession, and this conversation is being tape recorded.
Interior billiard room. Yvette is standing behind an old-fashioned reel-to-reel tape recorder, monitoring the recording of the conversation taking place in the study. The tape recorder is placed in a cupboard, the doors of which are open. They're all speaking more or less together.
Point of order, sir. Tape recordings aren't admissible evidence.
I'll deny everything.
Nor have I.
Ladies and gentlemen, the police have already been invited. They will be here in 45 minutes. Tell them the truth and Mr. Body will be behind bars.
Oh, sorry. They all stare at him in panic. Mr. Body walks to the door.
Where are you going this time?
I think I can help them make up their minds. May I just get my little bag from the hall?
Interior of the hall. Mr. Body emerges from the study and crosses the hall. He picks up his case and returns to the study. Interior of the study. Mr. Body re-enters, leaving the door open. He places his attached case on the desk, turns to face his victims.
Can anybody guess what's in here?
The evidence against us, no doubt.
Mr. Body smiles, shakes his head, and opens the case. In the case are 6 gift wrap parcels. He hands one to each of his 6 guests.
We didn't know we were meeting you tonight. You know you were meeting with us?
Oh, yes.
What were you told precisely?
Merely that you were all meeting to discuss our little financial arrangements, and that if I did not appear, Wadsworth would be informing the police about it all. Naturally, I could hardly resist putting in an appearance. Open them.
They look at the presents in their hands. Mr. Body pours himself a brandy from the decanter, sniffs the bouquet, and sips it.
Why not? I enjoy getting presents from strange men.
She carefully removes the ribbon, the wrapping paper, and comes to the cardboard box. Slowly, she lifts the lid. Puzzled, she lifts out a heavy brass candlestick. She looks at Mr. Body.
A candlestick? What's this for?
Nobody else gonna open up? Go on, pretend it's Christmas.
Miss White opens her present and finds a rope. Then Colonel Mustard, who gets a wrench. Miss Green gets a lead pipe. Miss Peacock gets a dagger. And Professor Plum opens his present. It contains a revolver. They all look at their gifts, at first in confusion, and as revolver appears, horror.
In your hands, you each have a lethal weapon. If you denounce me to the police, you will also be exposed and humiliated. I'll see to that in court. But if one of you kills Wadsworth now, no one but the 7 of us will ever know. He has a key to the front door, which he told me would only be opened over his dead body. I suggest we take him up on that offer. The only way to avoid finding ourselves on the front pages is for one of you to kill Wadsworth. Now.
Standing right behind the door of the study, he switches off the lights. The room and the screen are plunged in blackness. Thuds, gasps, screams, a gunshot, the sound of shattering glass, scuffles, groans. Lights are switched on, and Mr. Body lies on the floor, prone, face down. Everyone else is standing where they were standing when the lights went out. Directly above the center of the room, they all stare at Mr. Body, then rush towards him.
Is he alive?
Stand back. Give him air. Let me see.
They move back. Professor Plum gives a hasty examination.
Dead.
Who had the gun?
I did.
The gun's now on the floor nearby.
So you shot him?
I didn't.
Well, you had the gun. I didn't. Who did? If you didn't, who did?
Nobody. Look, there's no gunshot wound. Somebody tried to grab the gun in the dark, and the gun went off. Look, the bullet broke that vase on the mantle.
He's right. And there's a bullet lodged in the paneling. Here, see?
So how did he die?
I don't know. I'm not a forensic expert.
Well, one of us must have killed him.
I didn't do it.
I need a drink.
She puts down the dagger and picks up a brandy goblet that Mr. Body placed on the table near the door. Just before the lights went out, she raises her lips to it, sips a little.
Maybe he was poisoned.
After some moments of continued screaming, Mr. Green slaps her in the face. This stops her abruptly.
Well, I had to stop her screaming.
Was the brandy poisoned?
They all, except for Miss Peacock, who is half sitting, half lying on the sofa, hurry over to look at the brandy goblet, but it lies broken on the floor.
Looks like we'll never know.
Unless she dies too.
They all hurry over to the sofa and stare at Miss Peacock. She seems all right. From another room comes a terrible screaming sound. They all freeze and stare at each other in terror. Then, at once, Miss Green starts screaming. Mr. Green starts screaming too.
Ah!
Stop screaming, sir!
The screaming
Why
from the
are
other
you
room.
screaming?
Because I'm frightened.
What of?
Screaming! There's somebody screaming next door.
Indeed, somebody is still screaming next door. They all rush out together into the hall. The group rushes into the hall. Screaming seems to be coming from the billiard room. It's still continuing. Colonel Mustard tries the handle. The door is locked. He knocks on the door. He rattles the handle, then pounds the door again.
Open the door!
It must be the murderer.
Why would he scream?
He must have a victim in there. Oh my god, Yvette?
Oh my God.
Hello? Yoo-hoo! Open the door!
At this moment, Yvette opens the door. They rush in. Interior billiard room. There's a silence apart from the faint rhythmic clicking sound.
You're alive!
No thanks to you!
What do you mean?
You locked me up with a murderer!
So the murderer is in this room.
Yes!
Where?
We are all looking at him. Or it's what Mrs. White said in the study. One of you is the killer.
How do you know she said that?
I was listening.
But why were you screaming in here all by yourself?
Because I'm frightened. Me too. I also drank the cognac. Oh, mon Dieu. I can't stay in here by myself.
Oh, then come back to the study with us.
With a murderer?
There's safety in numbers, my dear.
She nods. Wadsworth switches off the tape recorder. Interior study. As they return to the study, Mr. Body is still lying there on the floor. Miss Peacock sits on the sofa again. They stare at the scene in front of them.
Is there no indication of how he died?
No.
Oh, this is terrible. This is absolutely terrible. This is not what I had intended. Oh my God!
Not what you intended.
So you're not the butler?
I'm not the butler, but I am a butler. In fact, I was his butler.
So, if he told you to invite us all to his house, why did he arrive late?
I invited you. In fact, I wrote the letters. It was all my idea.
Wait a minute. I don't understand. Why did you invite us all here to meet your late employer? Were you assisting him to blackmail us?
Certainly not.
I think you'd better explain.
Please sit down, everyone. Right. When I...
Mrs. Green's table collapses, and with it, the lamp and the bottle of liquor glasses that were on it. Mr. Green is very embarrassed, picks himself up.
I'm sorry, I'm a little accident prone.
He's a little what?
He's a little jerk.
When I said that I was Mr. Body's butler, This was both true and misleading.
Tommy,
Can't get out that way. God.
My
Live
dog's
theater,
trying to
kids.
upstage me.
We're
It's so
locked.
rude.
We're stuck.
I was once his butler, but it was not his untimely death this evening which brought my employment with him to an end. Oh, no.
When did it come to an end?
When my wife decided to end her life. She, too, was being blackmailed by this odious man who now lies dead before us. He hated my wife for the same reason that he hated all of you. He believed that you were all thoroughly un-American. For some reason, he felt it was inappropriate for a senator to have a corrupt wife, for a doctor to screw his patients, for a wife to emasculate her husband, and so forth.
But this is ridiculous. If he was such a patriotic American, why didn't he report us to the relevant authorities?
He decided to turn his information to good use and make a little money out of it. What could be more American than that? Mr. Buddy was truly an apostle of free enterprise. He became a rich man, but money is the fruit of all evil.
And what was your role in all of this?
I was a victim too. At least my wife was. Well, we all make mistakes, but Mr. Buddy threatened to give my wife's name to the House Un-American Activities Committee unless she named them. She refused, and so he blackmailed her. We had no money, and the price of his silence was that we worked for him for nothing. Well, to make a long story short,
Too late.
the suicide of my wife preyed on my mind and created a sense of injustice in me, and I resolved to put Mr. Body behind bars. It seemed to me that the best way to do it, and to free all of you from the same burden of blackmail, was to get us all face to face, confront Mr. Body with his crimes, extract a confession, and then turn him over to the police.
So, everything's explained.
nothing's explained. We don't know who did it.
Well, the point is we must find out within the next 40 minutes before the police arrive.
The police coming here? Oh my God, the scandal. I'm a senator's wife. I'll be ruined.
But how can we possibly...
Ruined?
Ruined? But how can we possibly find out which of you did it?
What do you mean, which of you did it?
Well, I didn't do it.
One of us did. We all had the opportunity. We all had a motive.
We'll all go to the chair.
Maybe it wasn't one of us.
Who else could it have been?
Who else is in this house?
The cook!
The group en masse rush out of the study. Everybody rushes across the hall into the kitchen. In it is an old-fashioned kitchen with a range of an old porcelain sink. The room is empty. The guests and Yvette rush in. They stop and look around.
She's not here.
And beside him, a cupboard door groans and opens. The cook falls face first out of the cupboard, dead. She has a knife in her back, the dagger. Miss Scarlett screams.
I didn't do it!
Now,
Well, help me, somebody.
Sorry, Miss White, Colonel Mustard, and Miss Scarlett hurry forward and help Mr. Green lower the body of the cook onto the floor. Miss White reaches for the knife.
Don't touch it. It's evidence.
Not for us. We have to find out who did this, and we can't take fingerprints.
I think you'd better explain yourself, Wadsworth.
Me? Why me?
Who would want to kill the cook?
The dinner wasn't that bad.
I'm afraid she has reaped the fruits of her evil and received her just deserts.
If this was dessert, I'm glad I said no.
How can you make jokes at a time like this?
It's my defense mechanism.
Some defense. If I were the killer, I'd kill you next. I said if. That's all. After all, there's only one admitted killer here, and that's not me, it's her.
I admitted nothing.
You paid the blackmail. How many husbands have you had?
Mine or other women's?
Yours.
5.
5?
Yes, just the 5. Husbands should be like Kleenex, strong, soft, and disposable.
So you don't believe in marriage?
I certainly do. Perhaps it's because I was educated in a convent, but I'm in the habit.
You lure men to their death like a spider with flies.
You're right. Flies are where men are most vulnerable.
Well, if it wasn't you, who was it? Who had the dagger? It was you, wasn't it, Mrs. Peacock?
Yes, but I put it down. In the study. I don't know, before I fainted, after I fainted, who knows? But any of you could have picked it up.
Look, I suggest that we move the cook's body into the study.
Why?
I like to keep the kitchen tidy.
Got it.
Wadsworth steps forward to the body. Professor Plum and Colonel Mustard and Mr. Green help. Somehow they lift her and cart her out of the kitchen. Professor Plum and Wadsworth taking an arm each. Colonel Mustard and Miss Green take a leg each. In the interior of the study, Professor Plum, Colonel Mustard, Miss Green, and Wadsworth stagger into the study. We see a wide, high view of the room. It's empty, the same high point of view. Where Mr. Body's corpse was, there's nothing. Professor Plum realizes it first.
Look,
What?
the body is gone.
Professor Plum has already let go of the cook's right arm. Now, aghast, Wadsworth lets go of the cook's left arm. The cook's top end immediately drops on the floor. Her head hits the floor with a terrible thud. None of the lifters notice this. They are staring frightened at the place where Mr. Body previously lay. Miss Peacock tries to enter, but she can't get into the room because of the four men and the cook's corpse are more or less blocking the doorway.
What are you all looking at?
Nothing.
Well, who's there?
Nobody.
What do you mean?
Nobody. No body. That's what we mean. Mr. Body's body. It's gone.
Meanwhile, Miss Scarlett, Miss White, and Yvette are crowding in the doorway.
He wasn't dead.
He was.
We should have made sure.
How? By cutting his head off, I suppose.
That wasn't called for.
Well, where is he?
We'd better look for him.
Mr. Green and Colonel Mustard let go of her legs and both feet thud to the floor. Tentatively, perhaps with eerie music, they all search the study, opening cupboards, under sofas, under the desk, but there's no sign of the body. Finally, they all stop and stare at each other, completely bemused.
He couldn't have been dead.
Was. At least I thought he was. But what difference does it make now?
Makes quite a difference to him. Maybe there is life after death.
Life after death is as unlikely as sex after marriage.
Well, we've got to find out. The police will be here in 35 minutes, and we have another corpse on our hands.
Maybe he killed the cook.
Yes.
Yes.
How?
Well, if you'll excuse me, I have to, is there a ladies' room in the hall?
Oui, oui, madame.
No, I just want to powder my nose.
Miss Peacock hurries out. Miss Scarlett picks up the envelope that Wadsworth had opened earlier and produces some photographic negatives.
What's this, Wadsworth?
I'm afraid those are the negatives to which Colonel Mustard earlier referred.
My God.
Were you planning to blackmail him, Wadsworth?
Certainly not. I had obtained them for the Colonel, and I was going to give them back when Mr. Body was unmasked.
Very pretty. Would you like to see these, Yvette? They might shock you.
No, thank you. I am a lady.
And how do you know what sort of pictures they are if you're such a lady?
What sort of pictures are they?
How dare you, madame? Give them to me at once.
No, I think there's something in them that concerns me too.
Let me see.
Nobody can get into that position.
Sure they can. I'll show you.
He springs
Get off
around
of
down
me!
onto the sofa.
Just demonstrating.
Interior of the hall. Meanwhile, Miss Peacock has found the door to the bathroom under the stairs. She tugs at it. It won't open. She tugs again. The door opens and the body of Mr. Body falls out. She screams. Blood is dripping from his head. He falls against her. She screams and screams. In the study, all the others hear the screaming.
It's Mrs. Peacock!
He rushes out into the hall. The others follow, Wadsworth grabbing the negatives from Miss Scarlett as he goes and dumping them onto the table. In the hall, Miss Peacock is fighting off Mr. Body, who is falling all over her. The others run towards her. There's blood all over her face.
Mr. Body.
He's attacking her.
Wadsworth and Mr. Green pull him off her, and they realize that he now has visible injuries. His head has been bashed. Blood's everywhere.
No, he's not. He's dead.
Mr. Body? Dead? Again?
Oh my God!
She's going to faint!
Sure.
I'll catch you. Fall into my arms.
She faints straight into. Standing behind her, Wadsworth holds out his arms to catch her. She faints straight through them and ends up on the floor in a heap.
Oh, sorry.
Mr. Green looks at his bloody hands. So do all the others.
You've got blood on your hands.
I didn't do it!
He's got new injuries. He's certainly dead now. Why would anyone want to kill him twice?
It seems so unnecessary.
It's what we call overkill.
What we call psychotic.
Unless he wasn't dead before.
What's the difference?
That's what we're trying to find out. We are trying to find out who killed him and where and with what.
There's no need to shout.
All right. I'm shouting. I'm shouting. I'm shouting.
He stops shouting. Purple in the face glares at them defiantly, and the heavy brass candlestick wobbles and topples off the top of the door frame of the loo and hits him in the head. It's bloodstained. He reels. He jolts to the floor. Exterior of the road, the rain still pelting down, rumbling thunder, racing clouds. The car is driving, twisting the road near the gate. It's going fast. Close up, the motorist at the wheel, tense, worried. Exterior road, going too fast. It races around the bend, and a cat leaps out into the beam of the headlights. The motorist swerves to avoid it. The car skids. In the study, Professor Plum, Colonel Mustard, and Mr. Green are lugging Mr. Body into the study. They put him down in the doorway because their path was blocked by the cook's body. Colonel Mustard takes the command.
All right, I'm in command now. Move the cook.
Miss White, Miss Scarlett, and Yvette clamber over the body and start to drag the cook along the floor on her back, the dagger still sticking out of her back.
Put the corpses on the sofa.
The men hesitate.
Ladies first.
The men put down Mr. Body's body and help the ladies lift the cook up onto the sofa. Professor Plum is mesmerized by Yvette's breasts as she bends forward.
Wow. Careful, don't get blood on the sofa. Look, Professor.
I'm looking.
How do we do this? The dagger will go further into her back.
Tip her forward, over the arm. Now, Mr. Body.
They haul him onto the sofa. Next, the cook, panting, they stand back.
Now, who had access to the candlestick?
All of us.
You were given it.
Yes, but I dropped it when the lights went out. Anyone could have picked it up. You, him.
Look. There are still all these weapons, the rope, the wrench, the lead pipe, the gun. Let's put them in this cupboard and lock it. There's a homicidal maniac about.
Oh,
Yeah.
good
idea.
Very good.
Wadsworth, helped by the others, puts the remaining weapons into the cupboard, locks the door. He puts the key in his pocket.
What are you doing with the key?
I'm putting it in my pocket.
Why?
To keep it safe, obviously.
But that means you can open it whenever you want.
It also means that you can't.
But what if you're the murderer?
I'm not.
But what if you are?
Well, it has to be put somewhere, and if I've got it, I know I'm safe.
But we don't know we are.
So where do we leave it?
In the lock?
Brilliant. I have an idea. We'll throw it away.
He rushes out of the study. The others follow. In the hall, led by Wadsworth, they all rush to the front door. Wadsworth throws open the door, pulls back his arms, and ready to throw the key into the night, and realizes he's standing face to face with the motorist. The motorist thinks that Wadsworth is about to punch him and half ducks, but to put his hands up to defend himself and stave off an attack. Wadsworth throwing his arm freezes.
Oh, sorry. How can we help?
The motorist sees 8 people packed into the front door, staring at him with various expressions of fear, suspicion, hysteria.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to disturb the whole household, but my car broke down out here, and I was wondering if I could use your phone.
One moment, please.
Amongst all themselves, they hastily whisper in conference. Occasional words float out of the huddle. Wadsworth turns and tries to look dignified and normal as possible.
Oh, God.
Very well, sir. Would you like to come in?
Well, where is it?
What, the body?
The phone. What body?
There's nobody, nobody. There's nobody in the study.
No.
No, that's been disconnected. I think there's one in the lounge.
Well, thank you.
Walk this way.
He sets off doing his usual dignified butler walk. The motorist, realizing that all eyes are on him, follows Wadsworth, an exact imitation of Wadsworth's idiosyncratic walk. In the lounge, Wadsworth indicates the phone to the motorist.
When you've made your call, perhaps you'd be good enough to wait here.
Certainly.
Wadsworth retreats to the door, opens it, goes out, and shuts the door. The motorist is now alone in the lounge. As he shuts the door, he jumps. Colonel Mustard is right behind him, miming locking the lounge door. Miming locking the lounge door. Wadsworth nods and turns the key. The motorist is about to dial when he sees and hears the key being turned on the mortise lock. He realizes he's locked in. He's very anxious. In the hall, Wadsworth leaves the key in the lock. He turns to face the 6 guests and Yvette, who are all staring at him.
Now, where's that key?
Wadsworth nods towards the door.
Still in the lock.
Not that key. The key to the cupboard with all the weapons.
You still wish me to throw it away?
Yes.
Very well.
He walks towards the front door. One of the guests opens it for him. He takes the key from his pocket. In the front, this time there's no one waiting outside. He hurls the key far away and it lands in a distant shrubbery, never to be seen again. The front door shuts.
What now? We've got 25 minutes left till the police get here.
I need a drink.
Whew, me too.
Yes.
They all follow. They pass the study door. The colonel stops and looks in at Mr. Body, the cook still lying dead on the sofa.
Just checking.
Everything all right?
Yes, 2 corpses. Everything's fine.
2 corpses. Everything's fine?
Colonel Mustard leads them all into the library. In the library, everybody stands around nervously. Colonel Mustard pours himself a stiff drink and tries to take charge.
Anyone else want a whiskey? Right. Pay attention, everyone. Wadsworth, am I right in thinking that there is nobody else in this house?
We're missing a page.
A
Bunch of wordplay surrounding how many people are in the house. Then they decide, then they try to figure out what to do about the motorist. Okay, everyone, continue. Page 66.
This is great.
Make it even more suspicious.
If I were him, I'd be suspicious already.
Look, that guy doesn't matter. Let him stay locked up for another half an hour. Who cares? The police will be here by then, and there will be 2 dead bodies in the study.
Well, what do you suggest?
There seems to be confusion about whether or not we are the only people in this house.
I told you there wasn't. Isn't.
You mean there isn't any confusion, or there isn't anybody else?
Either or both.
Then give me a clear answer.
Certainly. What was the question?
Is there anyone else in the house?
No.
That's what he says. But does he know? I suggest we handle this in a proper military fashion. Split up and search the house.
Split up?
Yes. We haven't much time, so let's split up in pairs.
Pairs?
Yes.
Wait a minute. Suppose that one of us is the murderer. If we split up into pairs, whichever one of us is left alone with the killer might get killed.
Then we would have discovered who the murderer was.
Yes, but the other half of the pair would be dead.
This is war. Casualties are inevitable. You can't make an omelet without breaking eggs. Every cook will tell you that.
Yes, but look what happened to the cook.
Are you willing to take that chance?
What choice have we?
Bon d'accord. No idea what that French word is, but it's dark upstairs and I'm frightened of the dark. Will anyone go with me?
It's basically good, okay?
I will.
I suggest we draw lots for partners.
Goes over to the fireplace, and from the mantelpiece, he takes boxes of matches. He leaves the library, gesturing to the others to follow. In the hall, Wadsworth, followed by all the others, crosses to the kitchen. In the kitchen, Wadsworth comes into the kitchen, crosses to the drawer, and produces a sharp carving knife. He turns abruptly, knife in hand. The others gasp, step back. Wadsworth is unaware of this. He sets about cutting the matches into 8 different lengths. Then, carefully, his back to the others, he places the matches in his hands so no one can tell their lengths. He turns to face them.
Ready? The shortest with the second shortest. That's not correct. Shortest with the shortest, second shortest with the second shortest. Agreed? And let's say the two shortest search the cellar and so on up.
They nod, and one by one, accompanied by tense music, they pick out their matchsticks. They compare lengths, and the result, Wadsworth is paired with Miss White, Yvette with Mr. Green, Colonel Mustard with Miss Scarlett, and Professor Plum with Miss Peacock.
You and me, honey buns.
Yuck. Why don't we all search the house together?
We haven't the time. Let's go.
In the hall, all the guests come out of the kitchen into the hall. We see them divide up into their pairs. Professor Plum and Miss Peacock separate from the other six and head towards the doorway that opens up to the cellar stairs. Wadsworth and Miss White, Yvette and Mr. Green all go up the main stairs. Colonel Mustard and Miss Scarlett remain in the hall.
Well, we know what's in the study. We've just come from the library, and the stranger is locked in the lounge. So...
Well, let's look at the billiard room again.
They cross the hall and carefully open the door to the billiard room. In the billiard room, Colonel Mustard and Miss Scarlett come in and nervously search it. Under the table, in the cupboards, behind the full-length drapes at the window, nobody's there. In the second floor landing, Wadsworth and Miss White are peering anxiously in a couple of dark bedrooms, slightly unwilling to go in.
Are you going in there?
Yes.
Are you?
Yes.
They don't move.
Right.
Right.
They don't move.
I can't see a light switch.
Neither can I, but there must be switches by the beds.
Shall I come in with you?
No, I mean, no thank you.
He goes into the first bedroom. She goes into the second. The landing is empty for a moment. Camera stays there. Both of their heads reappear around the doorways, checking on each other. In the attic staircase, the rain is still pouring. The wind is howling. Mr. Green and Yvette pause at the foot of the staircase.
Do you want to go in front of me?
No.
I'm sure there's no one up there.
Then you go in front.
Okay.
But Mr. Green doesn't move. In the cellar stairs, Professor Plum and Miss Peacock are standing at the top of the cold flagstone steps, cold brick walls.
Well, ladies first.
She looks at the long, steep staircase that falls before her.
No, you can go first.
No, I insist.
No, I insist.
What are you frightened of? A fate worse than death?
No, just death. Isn't that enough?
In the hall, Colonel Mustard and Miss Scarlett tentatively push open two big double doors at the far end of the hall. They open into a huge, dark, cavernous space. It's actually the ballroom.
What room is this?
Search me.
Okay.
I didn't mean that literally. Get your mitts off me.
He obeys. In the attic staircase, Yvette and Mr. Green have not moved. They are squeezed in side by side at the bottom of the narrow staircase.
Go on. I'll be right behind you.
Well, that's why I'm nervous.
Then let's go together.
Mr. Green nods. Side by side, they walk up the narrow staircase. There isn't room for both of them. They look ridiculous, squeezed together. In the cellar stairs, side by side, Professor Plum and Miss Peacock are walking down the dark cellar stairs. It's not easy. In the hall, side by side, Colonel Mustard and Miss Scarlett are trying to get into the big dark room through the one open double door. It's not possible. They bang into each other, they separate, then go again. They bang into each other again. In the first bedroom, Wadsworth is groping around, trying to find a lamp.
If there's anyone in here, just look out.
In the second bedroom, Miss White is doing the same thing.
Are you hiding? I'm coming.
In the first bedroom, Wadsworth looks under the bed fearfully. In the cellar, Professor Plum and Miss Peacock have reached the bottom of the steps. Various dark rooms open in front of them. Eyeing each other with the greatest suspicion, they back away into separate rooms. In the first bedroom, Wadsworth finds a bedside lamp. Close up on Wadsworth's hands, putting it on. Interior second bedroom. Miss White is in the second bedroom, can now see a little because of the light spilling through. She sees a huge shadow of a person beside her.
Who are you? Who is it? Who are you?
No reply. She switches on a light switch, backs towards it. She looks around. She's in the children's nursery, full of toys, dolls, big bears, rocking horses, trains, etc. She's been talking to a big doll. In the ballroom, Colonel Mustard and Miss Scarlett switch on a light. They see a huge ballroom stretching out before him, a piano at the end.
Nobody here.
He hasn't even looked.
Unless in those cupboards or behind those curtains.
You look. I'll search the kitchen.
He goes. A long curtain moves. She stares. They move again. Miss Scarlett goes slowly and fearfully towards the curtain. Sharply, she pulls them back. Nobody there, just a broken pane of glass. On the country lane, the motorist car stands just off the side of the road. Then we see the police patrol cars driving slowly towards it. In the patrol car, there is a cop alone. He sees the motorist's abandoned car. He eyes it suspiciously. He pulls way past the motor car. In the hall, a gloved hand, male or female, we can't tell, removes the key from the locked key in the lounge door. In the study, we see a desk. On it lies the envelope from which Wadsworth has earlier withdrawn the letter, which he reads to all the guests. The gloved hand pulls the envelope from the desk. It pulls out the negative photographs, one of Mr. Body, the other of the cook, the other of Mr. Green, and then of the motorist in an army uniform at the wheel of a jeep. The photographs of Colonel Mustard and Yvette, which were earlier left on the table, are being examined. We also see some letters and other papers. They're stuffed back into the envelope, which is thrown into a blazing log fire. It burns up. The camera moves with the gloved hand across the cupboard. The key is inserted into the lock. The door opens and the weapons are revealed. On the road, the cop walks slowly, curiously up the motorist car and wanders around it. In the lounge, the motorist is on the telephone.
I'm a little nervous. I'm in this big house and I've been locked in the lounge. The funny thing is there's a whole group of people here having some sort of party, and one of them is my old boss from...
Then, held in the gloved hand that could be male or female, a wrench comes into shot and hits the motorist on the head. He falls. The phone drops. The wrench is dropped. In the ballroom, Miss Scarlett is leaving the ballroom. She comes out into the hall. She calls nervously.
Colonel Mustard? Colonel Mustard?
He comes out of the kitchen.
There's no one in the kitchen.
Shall we try the conservatory?
Mm-hmm. They go into it. In the conservatory, there's an eerie looking room in the dark. Big trees and plants make weird shapes and shadows, but within a few moments, Colonel Mustard finds a light switch and looks around.
Look!
He points. We see that the panel of the wall is slightly ajar. They cross to it. There are steps down onto it into pitch darkness.
Looks like a secret passage. Shall we see where it leads?
There's a flashlight on a nearby shelf. Colonel Mustard grabs it. They look at each other, and Colonel Mustard steps in.
What the hell? I'll go first. I've had a good life.
She follows him. In the secret passage, they wind their way along the dark stone passage. The Colonel trips on something. He stumbles. It makes a big echoing noise.
God damn it! It.
In the lounge, the gloved hand switches off the light. Now there's only a little moonlight coming into the crack of the shutters. Miss Scarlett and Colonel Mustard emerge into the room.
Why is it dark in here?
Because there's no light.
Suddenly, she trips or is pushed. She stumbles forward. He is pushed, drops the flashlight. It goes out. Her foot catches the face of the dead motorist. She falls over his body.
What's that? What happened?
Did you push me?
No. Did you push me?
No, I fell over.
Did you hurt yourself?
No, I landed on something soft.
We can't see what she's landed on. She feels around. Her hand finds the motorist's head. She's shocked.
It's a body. Someone else is in here.
Switches on the flashlight.
Who is it?
Colonel Mustard swings around, swinging his arm, and his hand hits the flashlight held by the gloved hand. Impact, the flashlight flies through the air. It lands on the floor. A shoe kicks it. It slides across the floor. It goes out.
The murderer's in here!
I'm in here with the murderer!
Colonel Mustard crashes over the body and falls on Miss Scarlett. She gasps. In the attic, Miss Green and Yvette are in the attic picking their way amongst old junk, chests, grandfather clocks, suitcases, trunks, old family portraits, and above all, cobwebs and dust. They too have found a light switch and can now see what they are doing. From below comes the sudden sound of Miss Scarlett screaming.
Help! Help! Help!
Yvette and Miss Green run towards the stairs. In the lounge, Colonel Mustard is still lying on Miss Scarlett. She's trying to get away. He's trying to calm her down.
Leave me alone!
It's me, Colonel Mustard.
Oh, it's you!
Of course it's me.
In the second floor landing, Wadsworth and Miss White emerge from their respective bedrooms, hearing the screaming. Then, as Yvette and Miss Green hurtle down the attic stairs, they all run down the main stairs into the hall. We move with them. As they reach the main hall, Miss Peacock and Professor Plum shoot out of the cellar and collide with them. Crash. Meanwhile, from the lounge, you hear Miss Scarlett screaming.
Who is it?
Where is it coming from? The lounge!
They all rush to the door of the lounge. They try to open it.
Door's locked.
I know!
Unlock it.
The key's gone!
Never mind about the key. Unlock the door.
I can't unlock the door without the key. Let us in! Let us in!
Let us
Let us out! Let us out!
In the lounge, in the hall, Wadsworth is unable to open the door.
It's no good. Stand back.
He walks firmly back from the door. He is at his most macho.
There's no alternative. I'll have to break it down.
Murder! Help! Murder!
Will you shut up? We're doing our best.
Yvette comes running out of the study, the revolver in her hand. She trips over. Getting a FaceTime. Yvette comes running out of the study, the revolver in her hand. She trips over Wadsworth, whom she does not see, writhing on the floor. The gun goes off as it falls. It shoots the gilt of rope that holds off the chandelier of the hall. The chandelier comes loose, hanging on by a thread. Meanwhile, when the gun went off, everyone else dived for cover behind the furniture or flat on the floor. Yvette picks herself off and runs to the locked lounge door. She fires the gun at the lock. The lock is shot away. There's a pause, complete silence. Then Colonel Mustard and Miss Scarlett open the door. They look shattered. Everyone else picks themselves up.
Why were you shooting that at us?
To get you out.
You might have killed us. I can't take any more scares.
The chandelier comes crashing down behind him. The shock frightens them all up.
Look!
She stands aside. They all peer through the door and see the dead motorist. Then they look at Miss Scarlett and Colonel Mustard.
Been shot. They're shooting at us. They're shooting at us.
In the hall, the chandelier is hanging lopsided. Closer, we see it's hanging on by a thread, which is unwinding. Yvette picks herself up and runs to the locked lounge door. The chandelier thread is unwinding faster. She fires the gun at
It's page is switched.
Yeah.
This should have been before that last one.
Yes.
Okay.
Go down to
I was like, what?
That's why I was
I was like, I don't know if I'm just like in the zone or.
No, that didn't make sense at all. I get shot and then I come out and almost get hit by the chandelier.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
Okay, so
Jump to
So we're on
77E.
yeah.
Jump to E.
Okay.
Interior
He takes
black.
the steps away towards the chair or sofa. He's facing the camera. He takes that step and the chandelier comes crashing down behind him. The shock almost gives him and them a heart attack.
Look!
She stands aside, switches on the light in the lounge. In the lounge, they all peer through the door and see the. Wait, is this where we're at? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
They all peer through the door and see the dead motorist who lies in the foreground.
He needed that hole in the head, like a hole in the head.
Which one of you did it?
We found him together.
There's a secret passage from the conservatory, see?
In the lounge, they all crowd into the lounge and gape at the secret passage.
It comes from the conservatory.
Miss
Thank
Scarlett
God you were
sinks
able to
into the
get us.
sofa.
Thank
Sorry.
God you were able to get us out, Yvette.
They all look at Yvette. She still has the gun in her hand. They suddenly stare at the gun.
Not the same gun.
From the cupboard?
Locked.
No, it was unlocked.
What?
What? Unlocked.
Locked.
But yes, see for yourself.
In the study, sure enough, the cupboard door is open and the key is in the lock. They all rush in and, stopping abruptly, stare at it. Then Miss Peacock turns accusingly to Yvette.
How did you know it was unlocked? How did you know you could get at the gun?
I didn't. I think I break it open, but it was open already.
A likely story.
At this critical juncture, the front doorbell rings. Ding dong. They all stand still, frozen in terror, not knowing whether to go to the front door or not.
Maybe they'll go away?
They wait and hope. Ding dong.
Maybe they'll go away.
They wait and hope. Ding dong.
I'm going to open it.
Why?
Why would you do that?
I didn't do it.
He rushes out of the study. They all follow. In the hall, they rush from the study towards the front door. The front door, the cop is waiting outside. Suddenly, it's opened by Mr. Green with the 7 others crowding the doorway beside him.
Good evening, sir.
Mr. Green slams the front door in his face. A momentary pause, and Mr. Green flings the door open again.
Yes?
I found this abandoned car near the gates of this house. Did the driver come here for help by any chance?
No.
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 Oh, actually, yes.
No.
No!
Fucking idiot.
There seems to be some disagreement.
No.
No.
Yes.
Can I come in and use the phone?
Of course you may, sir. You may use the one in the. You can use the one in the. No. Would you be kind enough to wait in the library?
Sure.
He comes in. As he steps into the hall, he notices Yvette. He stops and eyes her suspiciously.
I know you from somewhere. You all seem very anxious about something.
Oh, it's because the chandelier fell down. It could have killed us.
Miss Scarlett hurries to lounge Professor Plum to the study. They shut the doors fast and too loudly as he walks by. Slam, slam, one after the other. The cop notices. Wadsworth shows the cop into the library.
Please help yourself to a drink if you like. Not the cognac, just in case.
In case of what?
But Wadsworth shut the door also with a bang and locked it. This time he's in a big hurry and leaves the key in the lock. He hurries back along the hall where the 6 guests and Yvette are standing panic-stricken.
What now?
We should have told him.
We see and they see that the door handle is being jiggled up and down.
It's all very well to say that now.
I said it then.
Shut up.
Mr. Green shuts up. In the library, the cop is trying to open the locked door. Puzzled, he leaves it and crosses to the telephone. He's about to lift the receiver when it rings. Very loud. He jumps. He answers it.
Hello? Yes. Okay.
In the hall, Wadsworth and the group have frozen.
Was that the phone?
Maybe the cop answered it.
They turn towards the library door where the cop is on the phone.
And who shall I say is calling? Oh, yeah, and I'm Harry Truman. Okay, sir. I'll try, sir. I apologize, but I'm locked in a room here. Let me out of here. You've no right to shut me in. I'll book you for false arrest, wrongful imprisonment, obstructing an officer in the course of his duty, and murder.
There is a momentary pause, then the key is jiggled and unlocked. He sees and opens the door. Wadsworth, Yvette, Colonel Mustard, Miss Green, Miss Scarlett, Miss White, Miss Peacock, and Professor Plum are all standing there. Wadsworth speaks with as much innocence as he can muster.
What do you mean, murder?
I just said that to make you open the door. But what's going on here? Why did you lock me in? And why are you receiving phone calls from J. Edgar Hoover?
What?
J. Edgar Hoover's on the line.
J. Edgar Hoover?
That's right, the head of the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
The Federal Bureau
of
Investigation.
Why is J. Edgar Hoover on your phone?
I don't know, but he's on everybody else's. Why shouldn't he be on mine?
He goes into the library. He's about to shut the door when he has to remove the key from the lock. He shuts the door. In the hall, the cop is left standing with the others.
What's going on here?
We're having a party.
Mind if I look around?
Sure. You show him around, Mr. Green.
Me?
Yes. Why don't you show him the dining room or the kitchen or the ballroom?
Fine. Fine. Come with me, officer. I'll show you the dining room or the kitchen or the ballroom.
As he leads them away, the cop is going somewhat reluctantly, his eyes lingering on the study and lounge doors. As the cop and Mr. Green disappear into the dining room, Miss Scarlett turns to the others.
Okay, listen.
In the dining room, the cop and Mr. Green walk in.
This is the dining room.
No kidding. What's going on in those 2 rooms?
What 2 rooms?
In the study, Miss Scarlett's talking to Miss White and Colonel Mustard in front of the bodies.
Make it look convincing.
She grabs a bottle of brandy from the sideboard. In the hall, Miss Scarlett and Professor Plum whiz around and into the lounge just as Mr. Green and the cop emerge from the dining room. The cop points to the study and the lounge doors.
Those 2 rooms.
Oh, those 2 rooms.
Yes.
Officer, I don't think you should go in there.
Why not?
Well, because it's all too shocking.
The cop brushes Mr. Green aside, goes to the study, and opens the door. In the study, the lights are off. The phonograph is playing softly, Ain't Got No Body, an old 78 RPM record. The cop switches on the light. On the sofa, Miss White is sitting on the on the knee of the dead Mr. Body. She's kissing him on the mouth. He appears, from the cop's point of view, to be embracing her, but we can see that his arms and hands are being manipulated by Miss White like a big puppet. The cop sees this and his and his eyes turn to another couple. The cook is standing in the corner, her arms around Colonel Mustard, and he appears to be kissing her. The cook's hands are moving through his hair. In the corner, we see the cook's hands are behind her and back, and Miss Peacock is concealed behind the cook. It is Miss Peacock's hands who are caressing Colonel Mustard. The cop turns to Mr. Green, who is watching.
It's not all that shocking. Folks are just having a good time.
He leaves the room, followed by Mr. Green. Miss Peacock comes out from behind the dead cook. She's looking fucked up.
Oh my God. How can you kiss that thing?
It's like kissing my first husband.
Before or after you cut off his head?
In the lounge, Miss Scarlett is pouring brandy into the mouth of the dead motorist. In the hall, the cop and Mr. Green cross the hall and open the lounge door. In the lounge, Miss Scarlett and Professor Plum are in an embrace. The motorist is now lying back in the chair, his head injury not visible from the front. A half-empty bottle of brandy has his fingers curled around it. The cop enters. Miss Scarlett and Professor Plum separate. The cop eyes them. Mr. Green is still open-mouthed.
Excuse me?
The cop sees the motorist and crosses over to him. He sees the bottle. He bends down and sniffs his breath.
He's drunk. Dead drunk.
Dead right.
The cop takes the motor. Sorry.
I hope you're not going to drive home.
I won't be driving home, officer. I promise you that.
Someone will give us a lift?
Yes, we'll get a car for him. A long black car.
A lift?
The cop nods. Mr. Green is still open-mouthed. In the library, Wadsworth is on the phone.
Goodbye.
He replaces the receiver and, remembering his situation, hurries into the hall. In the hall, Wadsworth sees the cop and Mr. Green coming out of the lounge.
Officer?
You're too late. I've seen everything.
You have? I can explain everything.
You don't need to.
I don't?
Don't worry. There's nothing illegal about any of this.
Are you sure?
No, this is America.
I see.
It's a free country, didn't you know?
Didn't know it was that free.
May I use the phone now?
Certainly.
Delighted, he shows the cop into the library. The cop goes in and Wadsworth locks the door. Again, he leaves the key in the lock. In the library, the cop notices the door being locked. He turns to the telephone. In the hall, the group all come out of the study in the lounge.
Why did you lock him in there again?
We didn't finish searching the house.
We're running out of time. Only 15 minutes till the police come.
The police came already.
Shut up!
Yvette takes Mr. Green by the hand.
Come on.
And they hurry up the main stairs. Wadsworth and Mr. White follow. We move with them to, Wadsworth and Miss White follow. We move with them to a high and very wide shot as they all come up the stairs, and simultaneously Miss Peacock and Professor Plum return to the cellar stairs. On the second floor landing, Wadsworth goes back into the first bedroom, Miss White into the second bedroom. We move with Yvette and Mr. Green up to the stairs into the attic, where they separate and go into different rooms, of which there are many. We watch Mr. Green peering nervously behind the doors, into cupboards, into trunks. In the kitchen, Colonel Mustard and Miss Scarlett enter the kitchen. Colonel Mustard eyes a different cupboard door. He moves steadily towards it, opens it, and a fold-up ironing board drops out and hits him on the head. He reels. He then looks around. His eye is caught by the cupboard out of which the cook fell. He opens the door. It looks like a big broom cupboard. Then, with an eerie creak, the back wall moves and opens another secret passage.
Look.
I don't believe it. Where does this one go?
Let's find out.
In the secret passage, Colonel Mustard and Miss Scarlett move along the tunnel. Oh shoot, sorry, hold on.
Yeah, we're on to the next file now, everybody.
Part 2.
Cool.
Part 2.
Script part 2.
In the secret passage, Colonel Mustard and Miss Scarlett see a crack of light at the end of the tunnel. They push at the wall. It opens to their amazement. In the study, they have arrived. They look at each other astonished.
Let's try the ballroom again.
They leave the study through the door into the hall. In the hall, they cross the hall and we hear a noise, an unfamiliar noise, perhaps just a creaking sound. Colonel Mustard stops.
What was that?
I don't know. Nothing.
In a wall somewhere in the house, we see a close-up of an electricity switch. We don't know where it is unless we've been very observant. It's a big red lever, and it's labeled power. The same gloved hand, which could be male or female, goes into shot. It grabs the lever and pulls. The light goes out. In the house, from up the driveway, all the lights in the house snap out. In the first cellar room, Professor Plum hears a sound. Is it a rat or a man? We see a dim light, a huge rack of wine bottles, and a noise come crashing down. Professor Plum.
I'm sorry. I'm lost.
It's so we're on the second document.
Second page of document 2.
Okay.
Page 92 of the second script. I'm gonna pour myself some more wine.
You're killing it. You're
This is
killing
why I
it.
have
I'm
a
sweating
giant
over
box
here.
right
The
next to
most
me.
thankless job. Serious question. Did anyone hear me go pee earlier when I left to go?
No.
Thank God. It's the only thing I've been thinking about this whole time.
That's amazing.
I did not realize that you could mute yourself until after I got back.
Oh! No. But if you mute yourself, I'm the only one who can unmute you. I'm drunk with power.
Oh, well, it would have brought more attention to it.
Yeah.
So there we go.
Your French
Nice
accent
and subverted.
great, by the way.
Yeah, really good French accent.
That's brilliant.
Thank you so much. I've seen a portrait of a lady on fire. I'm pretty much an expert now.
Ooh.
Okay.
You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so lights go out. In the cellar room, Professor Plum hears a sound. Is it a rat or a man? We see in dim light a huge rack of wine bottles. A noise comes from behind it.
Anyone there?
In the second cellar room, Miss Peacock can just see a large round shape. We can see it's a huge old-fashioned heating boiler and makes the occasional gurgle and hiss. She stops, terrified.
Don't you touch me!
In the ballroom, the room is dark, but some light is coming in through the hall. Colonel Mustard and Miss Scarlett walk around on the polished wooden floor. They walk slowly, feeling for obstructions. Miss Scarlett sees a large looming shape in front of her. She's frightened. In fact, it's the shape of a raised lid. It's the shape of a raised lid of a baby grand piano.
Who's that? Is anyone there?
In the second bedroom, the window has been left slightly open. On this floor, the windows haven't been shuttered. Some moonlight lights the room a little. The windows rattle and the curtains move.
Is anyone there?
In the first bedroom, Wadsworth blunders into the dressing room in the dark.
Is anyone there?
It's well lit by moonlight. He turns, sees himself in the full-length mirror, and thinks it's somebody else.
Ah!
He steps back and falls over the dressing table stool against the dressing table, which collapses under his weight, a tremendous crash. In the second bedroom, Miss White turns and screams in terror. In the lounge, the cop is on the phone. He hears the screams and looks around nervously. He's still holding the phone.
Hello?
In the attic, Miss Green and Yvette run into each other at the top of the attic stairs. They collide and hang on to each other in terror. Mr. Green.
No. Leave me alone.
Get away from me.
And together they fumble down the stairs. Mr. Green falls in a heap. In the stairs and hall, Yvette is hurrying down the main stairs. She can just see enough, and she can see the banisters to guide her. She reaches to the hall and crosses silently to the billiard room door. In the billiard room, she opens up the door and comes in.
Hello? Hello, are you here?
We hear a whispered voice.
Yes. What's going on?
Come in. At the door, sorry. Did the cop recognize your face?
He must have, and not just my face. He knows every inch of my body, like you. And like...
The rope is thrown around her neck. She's horrified. Her eyes widen.
It's you!
The rope is jerked, closing her windpipe. Cut to the library. The cop is talking desperately into the phone.
There's something funny going on here. I don't know what it is. No, I'm not on duty, but I have a feeling that I'm in danger. You know that big ugly house on the top of...
Behind the cop's head comes a lead pipe, the same gloved hand holding it. Hits him on the head with a thud. The cop falls onto the floor. In all rooms, close up of the guests in Wadsworth as the bell goes. The background in the from in the hall, the front door opens. A young woman from Western Union stands there, looking towards us, smiling. Then she sings,
I am your singing telegram.
crack, a gunshot. The young woman falls dead. The front door slams shut. In the attic, Mr. Green hears the gunshot from below. He turns, appalled, stumbles towards the door, opens it, and runs into a cupboard. Thud. In the dining room, Colonel Mustard hears, and after a moment's shock, runs towards the door. He bumps into the dining room table, knocks it forward, and plates and glasses crash onto the floor. He's hurt himself.
Owie!
In the ballroom, Miss Scarlett hears all the noise and looks towards the door. In the second bedroom, Mrs. White is trying to find the door in the dark, bangs into the large box. A huge jack-in-the-box springs out immediately in front of her. She almost has heart failure, then screaming wildly.
Help! Help!
In the first bedroom, Wadsworth is blundering around. He hears Miss White shouting for help. He calls out,
I'm coming! I'm just trying to find the door!
He finds the door.
Found it!
He turns the door handle. He moves forward. He bumps into another obstruction. His hand finds another handle.
Another door?
Miss White is still shouting for rescue.
Coming!
He jerks the handle and goes to the next door. Immediately, he hits a wall.
What's this, a cupboard?
Finds another handle.
Another handle?
He turns it. Water cascades over him.
Oh, Jesus Christ, I'm in the shower!
He stumbles out through the bathroom door, wow, that one really hits for me. He stumbles out through the bathroom door, finds the bedroom, and now with the help of moonlight in the main hall. In the main landing, Wadsworth hurries down, dripping down the stairs into the kitchen. Just inside the door, he finds the electricity mains lever. He switches it back on, the lights come on all over the house, and then the phonograph starts again. In the study, very slowly at first, gradually coming up to speed. We move with Wadsworth back to the hall, and gradually the 6 guests congregate there with him. Mr. Green coming down the stairs, Miss Peacock and Professor Plum emerging from the cellar, Colonel Mustard from the wreckage of the dining room, and Miss Scarlett from the ballroom. Slowly they wander around, checking the room. In the billiard room, they come towards the billiard room and see Yvette lying strangled, the noose around her neck, across the billiard table. Dazed, they turn and see the corpse of the cop.
2 murders?
Neither of them is shot. I thought I heard a gun.
So did
So did I.
The front door slammed.
Oh, God. The murderer must have run out.
Let's see.
At the front door, Wadsworth throws it open, and at their feet is the body of the young woman. The bullet point of entry is seen clearly on her forehead.
3 murders.
Well, 6 altogether.
This is getting serious.
In gape, he turns and slams the front door shut. In the hall, he crosses the door of the lounge. He looks at the floor, then turns to the others.
No gun. Yvette dropped it here, remember? Now it's gone. Very well. I know who did it.
You do?
You do?
And furthermore, I'm going to tell you all how it was done. Follow me.
He leads them all to the library. Okay. They all come into the library.
Okay, sorry. Scrolling. Okay. In order to help you understand what happened, I shall need to take you through the events of the evening step by step. At the start of the evening, Yvette was here by herself, waiting to offer you all a glass of champagne. I was in the hall. I know because I was there. Then I hurried across to the kitchen.
Wadsworth runs to the kitchen, and 6 guests follow him, also running to keep up. He enters the kitchen, followed by the others. He stops dead. Perhaps they bump into him.
And the cook was in here, alive, sharpening the knives, preparing dinner. Then
he runs out of the kitchen, across the hall. The others in hot pursuit follow him. He flings open the door and rings the doorbell.
The doorbell rang. It was you.
He points to Colonel Mustard.
Yes.
Wadsworth, at incredible speed, mimes and reenacts Colonel Mustard's arrival.
I asked you for your code. I recognized you as Colonel Mustard and prevented you from telling me your real name, as I didn't want any of you to be addressed by any name other than your pseudonym, and I introduced myself to you as the butler. I led you across the hall to the library.
The others, having mimed the introduction by taking the coat, he runs back to the library. The others breathlessly follow him. Wadsworth rushes into the library and grabs a bottle of champagne.
And Yvette met you and smiled and poured you a drink. And
He rushes out and arrives back at the front door, having almost collided with the group as he comes out of the library.
The doorbell rang again, and it was Mrs. White, looking pale and tragic, and I told her she was expected, and took a coat and hung it up.
He's on his way back to the library. The others can hardly keep up. He whizzes back to the library as the group follows.
And I introduced Mrs. White to Colonel Mustard. And I noticed that Mrs. White and Yvette flinched.
Then what?
Then we heard a rumble of thunder and a crash of lightning. And to cut a long story short, one by one you all arrived. Mrs. Peacock shook hands with Yvette, and Colonel Mustard and Mr. Green was offered champagne by Yvette, and Professor Plum and Miss Scarlett arrived together, and we were all introduced, and then...
He rushes out into the hall, skids to a halt.
The gong was struck, bung, by the cook, and we went into the dining room.
And he's gone, moving around to the dining table, sitting down, standing up.
And Mrs. Peacock sat here, and Colonel Mustard was here, and Mr. Green was here, and Professor Plum was here, and Miss Scarlett and Mrs. White, and this chair was vacant. And...
Get on with it.
Yes, get on with it.
I'm retelling it as fast as I can. Anyway, we all revealed that we'd received letters, and you had a letter, and you'd had a letter, and you'd had a letter, and you'd had a letter.
Get on with it!
The point is blackmail.
But this all came out in the study after dinner.
You're right!
They all turn out and race into the dining room. At lightning speed, they cross the hall. They're all crowded in the study. The corpse of Mr. Body and the cook still where they were left after the cops saw them. Wadsworth sits at each chair and turns, and he says,
and Mr. Green sat here, and Mrs. Peacock here, and Miss Scarlett here, and Miss Professor Plum here, and Colonel Mustard and Mrs. White, and...
Get on with it!
I'm getting there! Mr. Body came to get his surprise packages from the hall.
Now he goes back to the hall, mining, collecting packages.
And you opened your presents. Miss Scarlett got a candlestick, and
Keep going. No, keep going.
Miss Scarlett got a candlestick, and Mrs. White got a rope, and Colonel Mustard got a wrench, and Mr. Green got a lead pipe, and Mrs. Peacock got a dagger, and Professor Plum got a gun. Then Mr. Body switched out the lights.
He switches out the lights. They all scream. The lights are switched on. Wadsworth lies on the floor.
Good God!
He sits up.
That's right. Mr. Body lay here, apparently dead.
He was dead. I examined him.
Then why was Mr. Body bashed on the head with a candlestick a few minutes later if he was dead already?
How should I know?
So you made a mistake.
I did not.
Why not admit it?
Doctors, like the Pope, never admit the professional mistake or sexual indiscretion.
If you didn't make a mistake, you were lying, which looks very bad for you.
Okay, I made a mistake.
Right, but if so, why was Mr. Body pretending to be dead? It could only be because he realized that his scheme had misfired and that the gunshot wasn't intended to kill him, not me. Look!
He pulls Mr. Body's head forward and points to his ear. There's a slight graze on it. This should have been visible to the highly observant viewer earlier in the film.
The bullet grazed his ear. Clearly his best hope of escaping death was to pretend to be dead already.
So whoever grabbed the gun from me in the dark was trying to kill him.
But remember what happened next. Mrs. Peacock took a drink. You said maybe it's poison. She screams. Ah! It drops the glass. We took her to the sofa. She's still screaming. Mr. Green slaps her face. I had to stop her screaming. Then we heard more screaming from the library. Yvette and Mr. Green screamed. Wait, what is happening in this dialogue? It's like, oh boy. Okay. Colonel Mustard slapped him, and we rushed out.
He slaps Mr. Green's face. Oh, sorry, he's gone. Yeah. In the hallway, Wadsworth arrives at the billiards room doorway with the others.
And she screamed, and we tried the handle, and it was locked, and we knocked, and she screamed, and we rattled and pounded. And then they won't open the door. Hello, yoo-hoo! And Yvette opened the door, and we rushed in.
The door is open. In the billiard room, they're all standing in the doorway. Wadsworth turns to them. Back to normal speed, he intones with significance.
But one of us wasn't here.
No.
No, maybe one of us was murdering the cook, who wasn't here with us.
They all look around. None of them can remember.
Do you know?
I do. While we stood here, trying to stop Yvette from panicking, one of us could have stayed in the study, picked up the knife, ran down the hall, and stabbed the cook.
He enters the kitchen. They follow.
How could he risk it? We might have seen him coming back.
Not if they used this secret passage.
He pushes it, all except Colonel Mustard and Miss Scarlett gasp in amazement.
And the murderer ran back down the secret passage to the study.
Is that where it comes out?
Yes, look!
In the study, Wadsworth enters, followed by the others. She shows the secret passage.
How did you know?
This house belongs to a friend of mine I've known all along.
So you could be the murderer.
Don't be ridiculous. If I was the murderer, why would I reveal to you how I did it?
Well, Who else knows about the secret passage?
We found it, Miss Scarlett and me.
You found it. You could have known about it all along.
But I didn't.
Why should we believe you?
Because he was definitely with us all in the billiard room doorway while Yvette was screaming, don't you remember?
That's true. He was next to me.
But what I don't understand is, why was the cook murdered? She had nothing to do with Mr. Body.
Of course she did. I gathered you all here together because you were all implicated in Mr. Body's dastardly blackmail. Did none of you deduce that the others were involved too?
What others?
The cook and Yvette.
No.
No.
That's how he got all his information. Before he could blackmail anyone, Mr. Body had to find out their guilty secret. The cook and Yvette were his accomplices.
I see. So whoever knew that the cook was involved killed her.
Yes, I know because I was Mr. Body's butler, that the cook worked for one of you.
Who?
You recognized Yvette, didn't you? Don't deny it.
What do you mean deny it? I'm not denying anything.
Ha, that's another denial.
Oh, right. It's true. I knew Yvette. My husband had an affair with her, but I didn't care. I wasn't jealous.
And you knew Yvette too, didn't you?
Yes, she worked for me.
And you also knew her, sir?
He looks at Colonel Mustard.
What are you suggesting?
We have already established that you were one of Miss Scarlett's clients. That was why you were so desperate to get those negatives. Photographs of you and Yvette in flagrante delicto, remember?
Mr. Body threatened to send the pictures to my dear old mother. The shock would have killed her.
That would have been quite an achievement since she's dead already. So he had the motive.
You all had the motive. So the cook was dead, we lugged her back to the study, and Mrs. Peacock was screaming.
Wadsworth arrives at the toilet. He throws open the door of the toilet.
Ah! Mr. Body dead, toilet candlestick.
Well, when and where was Mr. Body killed?
Don't you see? Look, we came back to the study with Yvette and Mr. Body on the floor. Playing dead, but one of us knows he's still alive. I explained that I was Mr. Body's butler, and I invited you here, and we realized there was only one other person in the house.
The cook!
The cook!
The cook!
They all rush out of the study. Wadsworth leaps into the secret passage. In the kitchen, they arrive, stop dead, and then plucking up the courage, Mr. Green flings open the cupboard, and Wadsworth, enacting the cook's death, falls out into his arms.
By now she was dead. We laid her down with our backs to the cupboard. One of us slipped through the same secret passage.
Again?
Of course! Back to the study!
In the study, Wadsworth rushes in and over to the secret panel. As ever, he mimes the sequence as he describes it. They watch from the kitchen doorway.
The murderer is in the secret passage. Meanwhile, Mr. Body had been on the floor. He jumped up. The murderer came out of the secret panel, picked up the candlestick. Mr. Body followed us out of the study into the hall looking for an escape, and the murderer crept up and killed him.
He hits Mr. Green on the head and knocks him down. Mr. Green leaps up, breaking away from him.
Will you stop it?
Then the murderer dragged him into the toilet.
He illustrates this by throwing Mr. Green into the bathroom.
And then nonchalantly rejoined us beside the cook's body in the kitchen. It took less than half a minute.
So who wasn't with us the whole time in the kitchen?
Whoever it was is the murderer.
He races past them, exits frame. A moment later, they rush after him. In the study, Wadsworth enters from the right in front of the cupboard.
And we put the weapons in the cupboard and locked it and ran to the front door.
They see him coming and hurry ahead of him.
To throw away the key.
He flings open the front door.
The motorist! I didn't throw the key away. I put it in my pocket. And somebody must have taken the key out of my pocket and substituted another.
We were all in a huddle. Any of us could have done that.
Precisely.
He slams the door shut.
Wait a minute. Colonel Mustard has a top secret Pentagon job. Mrs. White's husband was a nuclear physicist, and Yvette is a link between them.
What is your top secret job, Colonel?
I can tell you. He's working on the secret of the next fusion bomb.
How did you know that?
Can you keep a secret?
Yes.
So can I.
I begin to see how it was done.
Was it a plot between them, Wadsworth, or did Colonel Mustard do it alone?
We shall see. Let's look at the other murders.
Yes, it was bad luck for the motorist that he arrived at that moment.
It wasn't luck. I invited him.
You did.
You did?
You did?
Of course, it's obvious. Everyone here tonight was either Mr. Body as a victim or accomplice. Everyone who's died gave him vital information about one of you. I got them here so that they'd give evidence against him and force him to confess.
So who knew the guy who came to make the telephone call?
He was my driver during the war.
And what was he holding over you? Or do I have to tell them?
He knew I was a war profiteer. I stole essential Air Force radio spare parts and sold them on the black market. That's where I made all my money. But that doesn't make me a murderer.
A lot of our airmen died because their radios didn't work. Was the policeman working for Mr. Body too?
The cop was from Washington. He was in my pay. I bribed him once a week so I could carry on business. Mr. Body found out somehow.
My God.
And the singing telegram girl?
They all look at each other, waiting for someone to confess. In the front door, Professor Plum opens the door and looks down sadly at the singing telegram girl.
She was my patient once. I had an affair with her. That's when I lost my license. Mr. Body found out about that too.
Let's put her in the study with the others.
The three men pick her up and carry her into the study. Miss Peacock shuts the door behind them.
Get on with it.
They run with her body to the study, hurl her through the doorway. In the study, the singing telegram flies through the air above them and lands on the sofa, shooting towards the fireplace.
So, now you all know why they died. Whoever killed Mr. Body also wanted his accomplices dead.
But how did the murderer know about them all? I mean, I admit I guessed that this young singer had informed on me to Mr. Body, but I didn't know about any of you till this evening. I mean, I'd never even met Mr. Body.
Nor had I.
Yes, how did he know?
I'll get to that. First, the murderer had to get the weapons. Easy, he'd stolen the key from my pocket. And we all followed Colonel Mustard's suggestion that we split up and search the house.
That's right, it was Colonel Mustard's suggestion.
And after we split up, there were 4 more murders.
And whose suggestion was it to lock the motorist in the lodge?
Colonel Mustard, wasn't it?
Indeed. So then we drew lots, we split up, and one of us got away from his or her partner and hurried to the study.
He goes back to the study and crosses to the desk.
Here on the desk was the envelope from Mr. Body. It contained photographs and letters, the evidence of Mr. Body's network of informants.
Where's the envelope now?
Gone, destroyed. Perhaps in the fire. The only possible place.
He goes back to the fire and picks up the burnt envelope. Bits of photographs crumble as he examines it.
Then, having found out the whole story, the murderer opened the cupboard with the key, took out the wrench.
Miss Scarlett runs to the lounge. The others follow the doorway, and we see her through the doorway.
Then Colonel Mustard found the secret passage from the conservatory to the lounge, where we found the motorist dead.
We couldn't get in, so Yvette got the gun from the open cupboard, shot the door open, bang, and then the front door bell rang again.
Ding dong.
How did you do that?
I didn't.
I don't believe this. I just don't believe this is happening.
Whoever it is, they've just got to go away or they'll be killed.
She runs out of the study. And the front door, Miss Peacock rushes to the front door. She flings it open. An earnest-looking elderly man is standing there. He has pamphlets in his hand. Gaby.
Oh, sorry. Good evening. Have you ever given any thought to the kingdom of heaven?
What?
Repent! The kingdom of heaven is at hand!
You ain't just whistling Dixie.
Armageddon is upon us!
I've got news for you. It's here already.
Go away!
But your souls are in danger!
Our lives are in danger! Get lost!
She slams the door at the elderly man's face and then turns, panting.
The cop arrived next. We locked him in the library. We forgot the cupboard with the weapons was now unlocked. We split up again, and the murderer switched off the electricity.
He switches it off. They all scream. He switches it back on.
Yeah! Okay, guys, there's 4 endings.
And all the endings pick up from here.
Here start the 4 endings.
First ending.
What? Oh my
Yes.
God.
Wait, there were only 3 in the movie.
I know. I'm curious about what the
There
third
were
one is.
3 in the movie?
There were 3
You
endings
haven't
in the
seen
movie.
the
I
movie?
watched it last night. It was excellent.
It's
But
free on Amazon Prime.
When you
this is
go
exciting. I don't know what's going to happen.
in the movie theaters, they would play one of the 3 endings. You would never know which ending you were going to get. But in the home version
What
on
a
Amazon Prime,
scam.
Yeah.
it strings them all out. Yeah.
Everyone watching this should get some sort of prize for making it through.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make up a 5th too, and you guys just improv with me. Okay?
That sounds great. Okay.
Excellent.
First ending. In the dark, the murderer ran from here, across the hall, to the study, gets the rope and the lead pipe. He ran to the billiard room, strangled Yvette.
Mr.
Ran
Green
to the
ducks out of the way
library.
again.
Sorry. Ran to the library and hits the cop with the lead pipe. Then,
Green
coming
duck.
out of the library, he saw automobile lights coming up the drive. It was a stinging telegram. The murderer picked up the gun where Yvette left it here beside the lounge door, opened the front door, recognized the singing telegram girl from her photograph, and shot her. Then he ran back to the cellar.
The cellar?
Cellar?
Yes.
But Colonel Mustard wasn't in the cellar.
No, but you were.
Me? What's it got to do with me?
The finger of suspicion points at you.
It's rude to point.
You murdered them all. You were the person who was missing when the cook and Mr. Body were murdered, and the cook used to be your cook. Don't you remember your fatal mistake? You told us all at dinner that we were eating one of your favorite recipes, and monkey's brains, though popular in Cantonese cuisine, are not often to be found in Washington, D.C.
Yikes.
Yeah, a little bit. A little light racism. Is that what we ate?
Are there any brains to be found in Washington, D.C.?
Why would I have murdered all the others?
Obviously, in case Mr. Body had told them about you too.
So it was all nothing to do with the disappearing nuclear physicist and Colonel Mustard's work on the new fusion bomb?
No, communism was just a red herring. Mrs. Peacock did it all.
There's no proof.
Very well, the gun is missing. Gentlemen, turn out your pockets. Ladies, empty your purses. Whoever has the gun is the murderer.
Miss Peacock produces a gun from her purse.
Very well. How do you propose? What do you propose to do about it?
They back away nervously, all except Wadsworth.
Nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing at all. I don't approve of murder, but it seems to me that you've performed a public service, ridding the world of an appalling blackmailer and his disgusting informers.
Mr. Green.
Now.
Police will be here any minute now. And then what happens?
Why should the police come? Nobody's called them.
You mean the police don't show up at exact 45-minute increments?
You mean?
That's right. Now, I suggest we stack all the bodies in the cellar, lock it, leave quietly one at a time, and forget that all of this ever happened.
Moves towards the study door. Miss Peacock steps forward, gesturing menacingly with the gun.
Good idea. I'm gesturing menacingly. Good idea. But I'll leave first if you don't mind.
Be my guest. I think we all owe you a vote of thanks.
Miss Peacock, slowly and carefully, gun trained on them, walks backwards towards the front door. Wadsworth starts singing.
For she's a jolly good fellow, for she's a jolly good fellow. Come on, everybody.
For she's a jolly good
fellow, which nobody can deny.
Don't say all of us.
Nobody can.
Oh, these lyrics are different.
And Miss Peacock is out the front door. In the hall, Colonel Mustard, Professor Plum, Miss White, Miss Scarlett, and Mr. Green are staring in amazement at Wadsworth.
I told you I didn't do it.
But what if the authorities find out what happened?
The FBI will take care of that.
You mean?
My phone call from Mr. Hoover? I work for him, of course. How else could I have known all about you all?
But there's one thing I still don't understand.
One thing?
Who was Mrs. Peacock taking bribes from?
A foreign power. Her husband, the senator, has influence over defense contracts.
Is there going to be a cover-up?
Isn't that in the public interest? What would be gained by exposure?
Does the FBI make a habit of cleaning up after multiple murders?
Well, yes. Why do you think it's run by a man called Hoover?
In the driveway, Miss Peacock comes out the front door, backing away with the gun. Suddenly, the elderly oh, I can't see it, appears behind her from behind the porch.
Mrs. Peacock, why are you holding a gun?
Miss Peacock is embarrassed to be caught red-handed with the gun.
Oh, so I am. Well, it's dangerous out here. It's so isolated.
Is that thing registered?
I don't know. It's not mine.
You don't need that weapon.
No, I guess I don't.
She puts it down and walks towards her car. Camera moves with her. She opens her car door and we pan to exclude the elderly man from the shot.
Oh, Mrs. Peacock.
She turns.
How did you know my name?
The kingdom of heaven is at hand.
He fires a revolver at her. Bang! Surprise, she collapses dead. The elderly man twirls the gun around his finger like a cowboy hero. Bright searchlights light up the drive. From out of the surroundings come several cops and FBI agents, guns in hand.
Wadsworth, all clear. I got her. She who lives by the gun shall die by the gun. I'm a cop who just shoots people.
Much of this is not in the film also.
No, it's not in the film. She just gets like arrested.
She just gets arrested.
Yeah.
You see, like the Mounties, we always get our man.
Mrs. Peacock was an insert transphobic joke.
Shut up.
It was 1985. They don't know nothing about nothing.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Here are the other endings.
Ending number 2.
Ending number 2.
Yes.
In the dark, the murderer ran from here, across the hall to the study, gets the rope and the lead pipe, ran to the billiard room, strangled Yvette. What? I'm sorry, I don't want to frighten you.
Oh, you're a little late for that.
And then there were 3 more murders.
So who
Did it?
Let's consider each murder one by one. Professor Plum, you knew that Mr. Body was alive. Even psychiatrists can tell the difference between patients who are alive or dead. You fired the gun at him in the dark and missed, so you pretended he was dead. That's how you were able to kill him later, unobserved.
That's right. He was missing. He was the missing person in the kitchen after we found the cook dead.
But he was with us in the billiard room when we found Yvette screaming. If that's when the cook was killed, how did he do it?
You don't expect us to believe that, do you?
I expect you to believe it. You killed the cook. She used to be your cook, and she informed on you to Mr. Body. She made a fatal error. Don't you remember?
He runs to the dining room.
All right. This joke again.
Yeah, same joke. When you saw the motorist at the front door, you took the key to the weapons cupboard out of my pocket, and then you suggested that we all split up. You separated from Miss Scarlett, crossed the hall, opened the cupboard, took the wrench, ran to the conservatory, entered the lounge through the secret passage, killed the motorist with a blow on the head.
This is incredible.
Races from one room to the next.
Not so incredible as what happened next. When we all split up again, I went upstairs with you. Yes, you, Mrs. White. And while I was in the master bedroom, you hurried downstairs and turned off the electricity, got the rope from the open cupboard, and throttled Yvette. You were jealous that your husband was stooping Yvette. That's why you killed him, too.
Yes, I did it. I killed Yvette. I hated her so much. The feel flames on the side of my face, breathing, breathless, heaping breaths, heaping breaths.
And while you were in the billiard room, Miss Scarlett seized the opportunity and, under cover of darkness, crossed over to the library and hit the cop whom she'd been bribing on the head with the lead pipe.
Wadsworth
True
has
or
acted out.
false?
Oh.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry.
No, go.
True or false?
It's true. Who are you, Perry Mason?
Mr. Green, who shot the seeing telegram.
I didn't do it!
No.
You're the only one left.
But I didn't do it. The gun is missing. Whoever has the gun shot the girl.
Wadsworth produces a gun from his pocket.
I shot her.
You?
You?
So it was you. I was going to expose you.
I know, so I chose to expose myself.
Please, there are ladies present.
You thought Mr. Body was dead, but why? None of you even met him till tonight.
You're Mr. Body.
Oh.
Wadsworth nods with an evil smile. They all gasp. Professor Plum's puzzled. He indicates the first body in the study.
My butler.
Oh, shucks.
He was expendable, like all of you. I'm grateful to you all for disposing of my network of spies and informers. You all saved me the trouble. Now there's no evidence against me.
So that's why you told me about the secret passage.
And this was all nothing to do with my disappearing nuclear physicist husband and Colonel Mustard's work with the new top-secret fusion bomb.
No, communism was just a red herring.
Mr. Green looks at his watch.
The police will be here any minute. You'll never get away with this, any of you.
Why should the police come? Nobody's called them.
You mean, oh my God, of course.
So why shouldn't we get away with it? We'll stack all the bodies in the cellar, lock it, leave quietly one at a time, and forget that any of this ever happened.
And then you'll carry on blackmailing us all?
Of course, why not?
I'll tell you why not.
He produces a gun and fires it as he simultaneously dives onto the floor. Wadsworth fires at him and misses, but Mr. Green has hit Wadsworth, and Wadsworth keels over dead. Mr. Green stands up.
Are you a cop?
No, I'm a plant.
A plant? I thought that men like you were usually called a fruit.
Very funny.
Very funny.
FBI. That phone call from J. Edgar Hoover was for me. I told you I didn't do it.
There's a burst of gunfire at the door. The elderly man bursts in, plus many cops. The cops rush in and arrest all except Mr. Green.
Who's done it?
They did.
Who did?
They did.
You did.
She did.
I did nothing.
The cops wave their guns wildly and indecisively from one suspect to another, not knowing who to aim at.
They all did. But if you want to know who killed Mr. Body, I did, in the hall with the revolver. Okay, Chief, take him away. I'm going to go home and sleep with my wife.
That's my favorite ending.
Mine too.
And I know it's slightly homophobic, but it is funny.
Okay,
I'm
now...
homophobic. I was just playing a part. Now I'm going to strip my wife.
He's just straight, like J. Edgar Hoover was, you know?
He pretends to be gay so no one would think he's a murderer.
That reflects well on us.
Or us, I guess. They were like, a gay cop. No.
No
Couldn't
way.
be.
Really?
All right, third ending.
Third ending.
Doing it!
Here we go, here we go.
I am losing light. My room is so dark.
Drew, turn on a light.
I have the light on, but it's very dark in here.
It looks like
So I
chat
usually have-
roulette.
Yeah.
It's moody, like a haunted
I
mansion.
promise I'm gonna keep my clothes on. Okay.
All right, here we go.
Ending 3.
In the dark, the murderer ran from here across the hall to the study, got the rope and the lead pipe, ran to the billiard room, strangled Yvette.
He demonstrates and mimes the whole next speech.
Ran across to the library and hit the cop with the lead pipe. Then, coming out of the library, saw automobile lights coming up the drive. It was the singing telegram. The murderer picked up the gun where Yvette left it here, beside the lounge door, opened the front door, recognized the singing girl from her photograph, and shot her. Then ran back to the cellar.
The
cellar.
Cellar.
Yes.
But Colonel Mustard wasn't in the cellar.
No, but you were.
Me? What's this got to do with me?
You did it. You and Professor Plum together. You were in league with each other. This is the one that's not in the movie.
Right.
This is in the movie.
The others gasp.
Think back. Mrs. Peacock was missing when the cook and Mr. Body were murdered. And the cook used to be your cook. Don't you remember your fatal mistake? Blah, 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 blah.
All right.
Same joke.
Same
Love
joke.
that.
She was my cook. I don't deny it. That doesn't prove I murdered anyone.
And what's it got to do with me?
You knew that Mr. Body was still alive. Even psychiatrists can tell the difference between patients who are alive or dead. You fired the gun at him in the dark, but missed. Then you dropped the gun and pretended he was dead so that you could kill him later, unobserved. You were missing in the kitchen when we found the cook dead, and that's when you did it. The other 4 murders were easy. Luck was on your side. You drew lots to search the house together, so while we were all occupied searching the rest of the house, you burned the evidence, killed the motorist, then switched off the electricity and killed the others.
So it all had nothing to do with the disappearing nuclear physicist and Colonel Mustard's work on the new fusion bomb?
No, communism was just a red herring.
But why did they kill all those people?
We didn't.
We didn't.
There's no other possible explanation.
I think there is.
He walks slowly out of the dining room through the swing door into the kitchen. Professor Plum comes out of the kitchen, the others behind, hanging on his every word. Professor Plum stares into the kitchen cupboard and then turns to face Wadsworth.
I think there is, Wadsworth. You knew about the secret passages, and when you drew lots, you held the matchsticks in your hand. You could have made sure we went to the cellar together.
It's a frame-up.
No, it isn't.
I'll tell you how we find out. The gun's missing, right? Everybody turn out your pockets and purses. Whoever's got the gun, shot the telegram.
Wadsworth produces the gun from his pocket.
Very clever, Professor.
You killed that girl.
He killed all of them.
He did?
Of course. Who knew every detail about us all? Who brought us all here, and Mr. Body, and all the victims? Who put the key to the cupboard with the weapons?
But he said the cook was murdered when we were all standing in the library door with Yvette. So it couldn't have been Wadsworth. He was there besides me.
But I was lying. That's not when she was murdered. I killed the cook earlier on when Mr. Body was on the floor in the study, and you were all clustered around him. It took no time at all. You see, as Professor Plum realized, I knew about the secret passage from the study to the kitchen.
Well, the police will be here any minute. You'll never get away with any of this.
Why should the police come? Nobody's called them.
Robin.
Oh my God, of course not.
How did you do it?
Would you believe me if I said it was to rid the world of an appalling blackmailer and his disgusting informers?
No.
Well, you'd be quite right. No, all my life has been spent in a struggle for perfection. I tried to be the perfect husband, but my wife killed herself. I strove to be the perfect butler, but I was driven to killing my employer. So I resolved that, in doing so, I would commit the perfect murder. But there is no pleasure in my triumph without an audience to admire it. And as none of you had the brains to expose me, I decided I must expose myself.
Good God, man, there are ladies present.
But you didn't commit the perfect murder. There are 6 witnesses to your confession.
Not for long, Professor. When the police eventually get here, they'll find 12 bodies and no explanation.
12. There's only 6.
The champagne was poisoned. If you don't get an antidote in 3 hours, you'll die. All of you. And I'm leaving now and locking you in.
He laughs and runs out of the kitchen. In the lounge, he runs. He runs into the lounge.
There's no escape!
He rips his telephone cord off the wall.
Ha ha!
The others have followed into the hall and watch him with horror. He flashes by on roller skates.
No.
What? I think we know why this was not included in the film.
This is my favorite
Whizzes in
one.
and rips the phone out of the floor.
It was in the film. It was just edited.
He races into the frame and rips the phone out till he turns in triumph. The doorbell rings. They're all surprised.
Don't move, any of you.
He tries to leave the room.
Get out of the way.
You said
Don't
don't
move.
Wadsworth hurries to the front door, gun in hand. He opens the door. The elderly man stands there.
I thought we told you to get lost.
Yes, but
Wadsworth reveals the gun.
Scram, you stupid old.
The elderly man lunges at Wadsworth and grabs his wrist. In the struggle, the gun goes off. Several cops appear just out of sight and burst in, guns ready, overpowering Wadsworth, and 6 guests rush out into the hall, screaming.
Help! Help!
I personally
I've been poisoned! I've been poisoned!
Etc.
hands up! Get him up!
They hold all 6 guests at gunpoint, backs against the wall, frisking them. The cops race into all the rooms. The first cop finds a gun in Wadsworth's pocket. Simultaneously, 3 cops burst in and out of the lounge and the billiard room, the library, respectively.
There's a body,
Body
in
in there.
There's a body.
What?
Then they realize the other 2 cops. Oh, sorry.
What? There's 3 bodies in there. 3 more? What do you mean 3 more?
Elderly
are
man pulling
you?
Wadsworth.
Who are
FBI.
you?
They sent me to clean up these murders.
Is that why it's run by a man called Hoover?
Who's responsible for these deaths?
Guy.
All of them?
It's true. It was the perfect murder. Let me show you how I did it.
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
Lord.
He pushes them all back and clears a big space. Surrounded by the 6 guests and all the cops with their guns, he starts retelling the story at an incredible speed.
At the start of the evening, Yvette was in the library by herself, waiting to pour champagne. I was in the hall. The cook was in the kitchen. The doorbell rang. Ding-a-ling.
He throws open the front door and all the guests and cops watch him, mesmerized by the performance. Wadsworth locks the front door from outside with his key. The guests and cops rush to the front door. Wadsworth races down the front steps. The rain has stopped. It's clear moonlight night, blah, blah, blah. The cops burst through the conservatory glass and out into the garden. Wadsworth is driving along, smiling. Sorry, I think I missed something. Wadsworth races down the front steps. The rain has stopped. It's clear moonlight. He jumps into the nearest police car, starts the engine, and pulls away. The cops burst through the conservatory glass and out onto the garden. Wadsworth is driving along, smiling. Suddenly he sniffs. There's a familiar, unpleasant smell. Then he hears a sound. He looks into the rearview mirror, teeth snapping. He turns, and there's 3 dogs waiting to pounce. They leap towards him.
How the fuck did they get in the car, but whatever.
How'd they get in the car?
What?
Can the dogs drive?
Was he still on roller skates?
What? Oh my god.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Last ending.
There's one
Wow,
more.
we're so close.
It's pretty
down.
obvious why that one did not make the final cut. So.
Yeah. I mean, though I
love the
really
temporary on
enjoyed
roller
the like rollerblades and where those came
That was
from
fun.
and when.
That was fun.
I was very into that.
All right.
Okay,
All right.
we can do
Here we
this.
go.
9 more pages.
One more.
I got 10% battery.
Okay, here we go. In the dark, the murderer ran from here across the hall to the study, got the rope and the lead pipe, ran to the billiard room, strangled Yvette. I'm sorry, I don't want to frighten you.
You're a little late for that.
And then there were 3 more murders.
So which
So
of
which of us
Which
killed
of us
them?
killed them?
None of us killed Mr. Body or the cook.
So who did?
The one person who wasn't with us, Yvette.
Yvette.
Yvette?
Of course.
Yes, she was in the billiard room listening into our conversation. She heard the gunshot. She thought he was dead. And while we were all examining Mr. Body, she crept into the study behind us, picked up the dagger, ran to the kitchen, and stabbed the cook. We didn't hear the cook scream because Mrs. Peacock was screaming about the poison brandy. Then Yvette returned to the billiard room. She screamed. We all ran to her.
What page are we on?
119.
119.
I know.
Miss Scarlett.
Keep rolling.
Oh, sorry. Are there any brains to be found in Washington, D.C.?
Oh, no.
119.
Where are you?
I don't know.
Page 73.
This ends already.
D.
Oh, sorry, 73, yeah.
Okay.
You said
One what?
My voice. What?
It's top of the page, Miss Scarlett.
Someone just said this is just like online school.
Guys,
They're doing good.
119?
School.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, or
No,
73.
you said
79.
before that
Yeah.
was the time the cook was killed.
I have my methods.
When did she kill Mr. Body?
When I said we all ran to the kitchen to see the cook, she stayed behind in the study for a moment to check that Mr. Body was dead. He opened his eyes, so she hit him on the head with the candlestick and dragged him to the toilet
Why?
to create confusion
Why did she do it?
because she was acting under orders from the person who later killed her.
Who?
Was it one of her clients? Or a jealous wife? Or an adulterous doctor? No, it was her employer, Miss Scarlett.
It's a lie.
Is it? You used her the way you always used her. You killed the motorist when we split up to search the house.
How could I have known about the secret passage?
Easy, Yvette told you. And then when we split up again, you switched off the electricity. It was easy for you here on the ground floor. Then in the dark, you ran to the study, got the rope and the lead pipe, strangled Yvette, saw the automobile lights, picked up the gun where Yvette dropped it, opened the front door, recognized the telegram girl from her photograph, and shot her.
You have no proof.
The gun is missing. Gentlemen, turn out your pockets. Ladies, your purses. Whoever has the gun is the murderer.
Mrs. Scarlett
Brilliantly
produces
worked
the
out,
gun.
Wadsworth. I congratulate you.
Hear, hear.
Shut up.
But there's one thing I don't understand.
One
One
thing.
Thing.
Yes, why did you do it? Half of Washington knows what kind of business you run. You weren't in any real danger. The whole town would be implicated if you were exposed.
I don't think they know my real business. My business is secrets. And Yvette found them out from me. The secrets of Senator Peacock's Defense Committee, of Colonel Mustard's fusion bomb, of Professor Plum's UN contacts, and of the work your husband, the nuclear physicist.
So it is political. You're a communist.
The State Department has always been so unsophisticated. No, Mr. Green, communism is just a red herring. And like all members of the oldest profession, I am a capitalist. I shall sell my secrets, your secrets, to the highest bidder.
And if we don't cooperate?
Then, just like Mr. Body, I shall expose you.
But we can expose you.
I hardly think it will enhance your reputation at the UN, Professor Plum, if it is revealed that you have been implicated not only in adultery with a patient, but in her death and in the death of 5 other people.
You don't know what the kind of people they have at the UN. I might go in their estimation.
It's no good blackmailing me, madame. I've no more money.
Nor have I.
I know, sweetie pie, but you can pay me in government information, all of you, except you, Wadsworth. You, as a mere butler, have no access to government secrets, so I'm afraid your moment has come.
She turns the gun on him.
Not so fast. Oh.
Not so fast, Miss Scarlett. I do have a secret or two.
Oh, yeah? Such as?
The game's up, Scarlett. There's no more bullets in that gun.
You think I'd fall for that old trick?
It's not a trick. There was 1 shot at Mr. Body in the study, 2 that shot down the chandelier, 2 at the lounge door, and 1 for the singing telegram.
That's not 6.
1 plus 2 plus 1 plus 1.
No, there was 1 shot that got the chandelier. That's 1 plus 2 plus 1 plus 1.
Even if you're right, that'd be 1 plus 1 plus 2 plus 1. Not 1 plus 2 plus 1 plus 1.
Okay, 1 plus 2 plus... The point is, there's 1 more bullet in here, and guess who's going to get it?
The front doorbell rings. Miss Scarlett turns automatically towards the door. Wadsworth leaps forward, smashes the gun out of her hand, and holds it to her in a vice-like grip. Mr. Green opens the front door, and several FBI agents and cops burst in, guns in hand. Other agents spread out into various rooms.
There's a body in there. What? There's 3 more bodies in there. 3 more?
Where's the chief?
The old man strolls in through the front door, gun in hand. Wadsworth still holds Miss Scarlett in the vice-like grip.
Ah, Wadsworth, well done. I did warn you, my dear. Mr. Hoover is an expert on Armageddon.
Wadsworth, don't hate me for trying to shoot you.
Frankly, Scarlett, I don't give a damn. But I was trying to tell you. There were no bullets left, see?
He pulls the trigger. The gun goes off. He's shocked.
1 plus 2 plus...
The chandelier crashes down behind Colonel Mustard.
Yee!
Woo!
Yeah. Wow, I can't believe this is a shorter movie than 10 Things I Hate About You, and yet this took longer.
The script, wait, are you sure?
I think so.
Because the script, like, the first part 1 was like 98 pages, and this was 79 pages. It was a real epic.
Yeah.
The actual movie is shorter than 10 Things I Hate About You.
Yes,
Well, the movie is much shorter than the script, because the script is so much description.
Right.
Right.
We should do Lord of the Rings next.
Oh God. Okay. Wow. Well, thank you so much to everyone who came. Next time it's going to be a lockdown. Here's what happened. This was a TGI Fridays, and now it's Soho House. So that's a very LA joke. Okay,
Wow.
thank you so much, everybody. Why don't you tweet at any of us and tell us what movie we should do next? Bye!
Bye.